Is it real? Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very likely, yeah.
Chinese guy got picked up at first base.
To all worthy of respect, bowing bodies as many as With supreme faith I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions. Perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. Thou art the eyes, the flame of the lamp, and the illusion of drop of pure follow. I dream a flash of lightning in the cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits many sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing. Subdue the flow of false, deliver them from self-cherishing. The curve of the waves leading
assembly as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, demigods, Gandharvas, and others, were filled with admiration and high praise for the spoken by the Blessed One.
In the holy supreme abode of the dignitaries, blessed, clairvoyance, miraculous power, and greatly caring for practitioners and
So
children.
homage to the host of great blessed saints. Through the power of the truth and exalted spiritual speech, may all society make against such full honors as God, anything not visible, anything classified, all enemies, obstructions, and hindrances, Shanti, Kurukulla. The asymptotic construction pacified, free from adverse harmful conditions. May all goodness and purpose and auspiciousness bring happiness to all men right now.
Right? Both ready? And then, why you do that? Usually, normal life. Of course, we like to sing, dancing, watch the game, samsara, joy, right? Samsara, joy, right? But actually, samsara is joy. Jivan Lord. Negative thought develop. Everybody in our samsara joy, self-cherishing. Who is the shadow one? Thousand heroes. Heroes to shadow one. But doesn't mean joy, the samsara.
You don't enjoy the samsara pleasure?
Of course, they more. Enjoy the samsara pleasure than the Jivan Lord negative. Art to enjoy samsara pleasure. You don't know. Anyway, this is just talk about this. Good night. Thank you for the rest. Thank you very much. I'm very well. You don't go to our topic now. You go to regular topic, you don't get much unlisted. Because I have to say Tibetan. I have to topic. Because I know the topic is like that. You're looking for something really weird. Really, it's really hard. All the nice jackets, nice photos, things, take a few minutes. Then I will know the rest of the rest already. Alright. Look at me. Very better. What I can do very weird. I would like to discover. Well, very weird. Anyway, then today you should enjoy the rest of the year. How you
So talking about Buddhism, in one hand it is like a religion, but on the other hand it is like a science of mind.
테리바사를 가네. 신이보 따지지 따지지. 따빠지 타투바. 무 섬나마도 캠능이더라. 아니다
So generally when we talk about science, it is something based on a proof and reasoning, right? You don't just believe because somebody said such and such, so and so said such and such things. They investigate until they find the real reason to believe that it is such and such. So when you find that, that's called science, right?
배차샤나 단다 쇼그마로 육샤베 루카모도 아니 사오라 마페 비나라 리도 쇼도 저도 따따 영화이나 내가 느끼니 바이 깨게레 예스네 랍샤나 아니 당도 랍샤나도 이세 같이 맞이나 당도 그냥 자 계속서 냠냠 타는 지와나 당연히
So for example, if we say the dry seed of a grain, like let's say barley seed, dry barley seed, so inside the box, if you say, okay, this one, if you put inside the ground and then provide all the conditions, all the facilities like water, fertilizer, and moisture, earth, and so forth, then it will grow into crops. If somebody says that, then that will be just a belief, right? That will be just a belief. Somebody said, oh, okay, somebody said this was going to happen. But then if you really do it, and then you really see that happen, then that's the science, right?
근데가 다 수주민에서 또 대별로도 다 수주 곁도 말아. 이게 맞나? 나도 이게 영화도 또.
So when it's just said, then it's just a belief, right? You haven't seen it, somebody said, oh, I see, okay, that's how it is. You just believe in that. But then when you see it, right, when you actually sow the seed inside the ground and then you give all these necessary conditions like water, fertilizers, manure, and so forth, then you see it grow into a crop. Then you will believe it, right? Nobody can say, no, that's not going to happen. That's not how it's happened. That's not how it happened. Nobody can say that, right? Because you see it, actually see it with your bare eyes.
그래서 땅도 망치 냠내지, 망치고지, 내가라 땅도 내시니까.
So that is how one should find the experience of the Dharma practice, not just believing, oh, so and so says such and such things, but actually practicing oneself to gain that understanding, that experience.
근데 강시에 대해서 샤와서 내시니야면은 딱그 부스케냐.
So if there is no realizations, no experience or realizations that can be gained from that practice, then there is no use of that practice, right?
근데 이마다 다 너도 남배 다 추서 다 걸어 가지고 나 아니 다 시가 다 시제도 시와이나 아니 만도 생체 자상의 대화도 대화도 두 마리
So in general, Buddhism expresses that all sentient beings are equal in wanting to have happiness and not wanting any sufferings.
대가도 근데 걔네도 살아가지.
So can we all accept that?
나도 근데 이다다 근데 강 돼야 대화다 강 먼저 등하대 워낙 그 너야 와나 앞에는 말아서도 그러나 돼야 대화도 그래 그 등하대 가서 좀 많이 봐지 대화대 다 유니로 그래 말아서 자서나
So in our case, although we want to have happiness and don't want any suffering, but the happiness that we want is very rare in our life, right?
So 대화는 좀 조금만 더 주고요.
So
대화는 좀 있지요, 말이야.
So not most of the things that we wish come into existence, right? Come into accomplished.
Right? We wish a lot. We wish a lot that not come true. Right? Anyway, maybe one time tenri yemba inza ta ngado chiwa ile ge yudro ene ngado de deva do ina ya de deva te ya ku ji de dunga de de dunga na je ma cha kanji de kanji wa re ta somo ta wa des.
So now why we have to think, why is it like that? Why is it like that? Why the suffering that we don't want comes all the time, and why the happiness we want doesn't come all the time?
tenri yemba da ta te ane sanji ga kawana te ane jedan kenan de shuma res jime keme jina te shuma ma res ta la res.
So all this happening, all these things that happen, like the experiencing of suffering and not experiencing much of happiness, all this happening happens because of cause and condition. It doesn't happen without any cause and condition by itself. It doesn't happen by itself. It happens because we have created causes and it meets with the conditions, and that's how it happens.
tenri da tawa ge yoya ge jeti mewa ma na deva de ko jema cha wa
So because we have created the cause, and then then provide all these conditions, therefore it will happen. So as long as we don't cut the root or the cause of that suffering that we don't want, then we will continuously experience suffering.
na ngado ngol taro ta chu ta ba ji ko ngado taro ka se ni na ngado ka se ma cha cha na ngado ke wo so ke ya de ko sa ne te mo ko de na sa wa ne ta ru ko na ko be na ko sa wa da cha de na ta ti ke wo
So like monks, they shave their head, right, very often. So no matter how many times they shave, it keeps growing, right? The hair keeps growing on the head. That's because they haven't shaved it or plugged it from the root, right? So if you plug it, plug it from the root, then it will not grow again.
누구 짠다고 해나 건가 짠도 메와 차는 거 야 시가야 깨고 와 에 난 거기 메와 나고 싸워가 다 루코람을 하다 그러다 그 조에면 깨는 거
So same with the plants and grass, right? They all keep on growing because the seed, the root of the seed is still under the ground, right? And so even though it dies in the winter, but in spring it still grows.
어떻지 근데다 다 안도 근데게 제 진심해야도 다 문도야게 동아세 되겠다 제다 가르레스 가르지는 연구를 생각도 다 되지 당겨서 남백이.
And so that is what we find out, in Buddhism, the cause of these sufferings that we don't want to experience.
근데게 카스데다 미시 마리 배왕기 아니 다 소주고 내가 제니 다 문도베 동아도요 이제 싸우요 그래서 나도 그래서.
So the cause for experiencing this suffering, the karma, which we call the karma, we have created a karma for us to experience these sufferings that we don't want to experience, and and these karma are actually manipulated or motivated by the delusions in our mind, like the ignorance, attachment, hatred, and so forth.
다들 간에로 용을 써와이나 빼차자만 데링아도 꼬마 잡아이나 데링아도 꼬마 잡고와이나 꼬마 꼬와 디기 꼬마 꼬와라 때는 저 동아야게 졌다 사사래서 꼬마 꼬와라 때네.
For example, if we have created, let's say we committed a crime, negative karma of stealing, right? So by stealing, you have created a crime, right? You have committed crime, you have created a negative karma.
다 빼다 빼다 버려. 텐데자 다 텐데게 깨는 쳐봐이나 꼬마데 밤 다보이나 뿌리다 지금 라발을 치셔네. 아니 종간도 동아인도 와. 텐데 동아가 제때 가지 사와나 그마 기분나 가사와레스.
And so, as a result of that, right? Result of that, let's say you got arrested, right? One is arrested and then taken into prison, and so all the sufferings that one has to go through in the prison is because of the karma that one has created by stealing, right?
대초도 삼단도 서르베스.
Does that make sense?
대강도 라파로 당도 라파로라고 해야 돼.
That's a gross example which we can understand, right?
그리고 배나 종칸라 금마데 종칸라도 예다라야게 동아기 티 동아 딱 예다가 소소 강가라게 저소도 가지 사셔버리 코랑기 꾸마져버리는 사르버스.
So, for example, when somebody stole and then he got arrested and then he got punished in the prison. So the punishment that he received in the prison is the result of stealing, right? Because he stole, therefore he got arrested, he got imprisoned and punished. Right?
오 텐디자 텐디가 다 텐디 그만 오나 다 그만데 간지 그거나 다 꼬마 껴발았더니 되니 동아 용어에 봐 무시 대라 모아지 다 소설을 지 고고 누구 삼배지 다 잡아 내자 친구 껴발았더니 다 내자 뒤에 다 니네 지시네 아니 다 꼬마 그거래서 내자도 영어 제대로
And so, for example, that karma of stealing, the karma or the act of stealing, was motivated by the mind, right? So, mind didn't know. The first, of course, based on the ignorance, the basic thought is ignorance, right? Not knowing that that's bad, not knowing that there can be bad consequences, not knowing that exactly, and in general, like not knowing it. But of course, even if you know it, then you don't like really think about that, So you just blinded yourself, make yourself not know about it, and not knowing that, then you you commit that crime, and then also it can be also motivated by attachment, and not knowing that the stealing can lead you to that suffering, and because you have attachment to that thing, and then you went to steal. So it's all because of that. Right? So these thoughts motivate one to create that karma or the action of stealing.
다들 렘먹게 되어 사탄도 지지로 와 당나도라 반도 그러다 다지 개와로 대화로 나와 있나 당가서 직된 지 대화로 담년으로 용화도 되어 와 있나 배나 뮤직 안에 순속을 샵시 야부 저거 와 있나 대접발라 때네 아니 슈마 다 자급에 나타내지겠다 문제가 자원들이 제송오세 진년바도 저와이나 딘디 년바다 라야가 지대까지 사와리 아니 순속을 샵시 야부 저거다 데려드는 경우로
And then there's the rough example of the negative, right? The negative karma, which brings the suffering. And then let's say the happiness, the samsaric happiness or happiness. So, for example, somebody served the community or the society very well, and then because she was recognized later for doing such a nice thing for the community. And then he or she is rewarded later, right? So that happiness of receiving the fame and reward is because of serving the community, right?
어떤지 연구를 왔어. 어떤지 임바다 다 아니 배자 네가 나라 가려라고 해서 봐이나. 아니 소소 다 개월하다 걔네 마시고 봐서도 가서 코와 토마면가네. 다 동아 알아서라 못해 동아 째대 저도 들었나? 아라 제바데 제즈데레 수소 되게 영원데 제발라 때네 아니 다소 좀 문제가 동아도 영화를 해들라고 그래서.
And so this text, the wheel of sharp weapon, the known as the wheel of sharp weapon, it all talks about all this negative karma, negative actions, negative thoughts that brought us all this suffering. So all the sufferings we experience is because of the self-cherishing attitude. Because of that self-cherishing attitude, then we experience all these sufferings.
다 대래도 배 아니 랑 야와도 제제반 전쟁이 아니 상접 선바도서 빠워서 제대시 빠워 던조 아니 다 가디나 대나 로나 기보 대나 대와인 바 대와레스 대영화도 가지나 아니 랑 야와도 제제반 전발라 때니 근데 용거요레스 다디 배전이 뭐 대라고 그러지.
And so on the opposite side of that, like cherishing oneself is the cause of all the sufferings, right? So cherishing others is the cause of all the happinesses. So you achieve all the happiness by cherishing others. And so the bodhisattvas who cherish others all the time, they are known as the heroes. The real heroes are the one who cherishes others, who work for the benefit of others, right? And so when they work for the benefit of others by cherishing others, then they are also always happy. So whether they're sitting, whether they're walking, whether they're eating, whether they're sleeping, they're all the time happy because they're cherishing others.
배차 든리기 산제 선바도 가려 정나 배나 알아서 다 줘서 바와 말에 최선을 줘서 다 냠녀로 와서 바와 아미지 수수포 배나 달로 깨네 롱아메지 좀 저거 봐가 보고라 제와나지 심지 탐출라 대라 제베네 제와나지 다 jelak kadi chetawa yana ani ta shangju sambase de la pa ta ta nye yo reso.
So you have to have this compassion or affectionate love towards all sentient beings, just as a mother will have towards her child. and the child. Of course, when they grow older, maybe less affectionate love, right? But like when they're around, until like they are 5 years old or 10 years old, the mother will have so much, carings and loving, and affectionate love, towards the child. So that is the kind of love, the bodhisattvas will have to.
제도나 아니 다 니제세로 대체나 아니 다 지고 가지 뇨다치는 명이 작으래서
So if you can develop that kind of affectionate love, towards all sentient beings, then there will be no problems at all.
가나 콘도스 지고요 말아봤어.
Because there's nobody you can get angry towards, right?
나도 마제 콘도 사사 연이 때전에 용거로 왔어.
So most of the problems we face are because of getting angry, right?
콘도 사사메 타도란사메 아니 나제제서 메가로 왔을 때.
So if there's nobody to be angry, towards, or nobody to be jealous with, then you will not have any problems, right?
What's that? And there's something. And there's something that I'm going to get to. That then the devil.
So if you can develop that kind of thought, the self, the cherishing others, neglecting oneself and cherishing others, and then one will achieve happiness all the time.
그래서 다다 되게 빼전 되게 나라 안에 강조 식당 남바 사집이 주는라 다 깨워 충시 충리 첨보성분 냠는 요래 네 나라 다 깨워 첨부 냠는 송 그래서
And so here in this text, it explains about the practice, of the great scope. So we usually normally talk about the small scope, medium scope, and great scope, right? So here it explains the practice of the great scopes.
다 깨워 충리 첨보성분 간을 나가서 배나 나라서 소소 다 대원도지 동아 잡아 다 대소다 가서 시당 땅연송 나그래서 문에 지나 다 소송 연송 그 동아 안에 대래 타외 제도 다 지금 개원염내 정해들아 개원 중앙설라고 그래서
So the practitioner, of the small scope path, will be somebody who wants to have a better life in the future, right? Doesn't care much about this life, at least cares about the future life, so wants to have a better life in the future, and not have a bad rebirth in the future. So for that, then one engages in practice. So that's called a small scope.
답변은 강조 제의 중위층으로 샤셔다로 와서 나서 제의 중위층으로 샤와야나 다 소소 체인디가 아니 다 가로 소소 체인디가 아니 다 동알아 지시 강gel한 지시 또 안에 텔레 좁이셔다 딱 개와댕이들 제의 중위층으로 랍쳐서 말이었어. 근데 다녀도 개말로 다 소소 체인디가 아니 다 지금 동아 강gel한 타위셔다 지금 개와
저버거를 잘 말아.
아
저버거를 잘 말하는데.
근데 강조시다 죽게는 남주에 말서 이노 당도 되는 랍쳐놓지 이러와 강조 주반에 쪽으로 왔다 대쪽으로 왔다 강선으로 왔다 강조 체인디 그 소소직 라베도 체시마도 직 샘제 라고다 근데 문이 파 대화이나 소소 체인디지 대화 영화도 동화 모양의 답이 지금 와도 되게다 강조 마시드는 왔어 아니 배잖아 죽게지나다 대 주반에 쪽에 말했어 나 강조 받어 봐야나 강조 두드라지 받
So if we don't think about the future life, if we don't think about future life, and only think about this life, so let's say we say mantras, we say prayers, we do practices, in order to have happiness in this life, good life in this life, so not to have any sicknesses or diseases and spirit harms and so forth. So to avoid all these things and to have a good life in this life, and then you do those practices, right? Recite mantras, make prostrations, do prayers, all these things. That, according to the Dharma, that is not even considered as Dharma practitioner. So even if you do that, even if you are doing prayers, even if you're doing meditation, you are not a practitioner. If your motivation is just to have happiness in this life, so you are not even a practitioner of a small scope. And so, but we can still say you are a practitioner, but not a real practitioner. The real practitioner, Dharma, you are not a Dharma practitioner, because if you are a Dharma practitioner, then you have to at least, at the very least, think about the future life.
다 되지. 다 깨원 리세야 돼. 단 거기 동안에 타나 Ngensu dunga chigil tawa pengda yang ang khowala chegendo. Tang khowe dunga de chik tana tamundu e taya chida ani gewa nyamla chegenda gewan rings.
And then the medium scope, thinks that even if I have a good life in the future, still I'm in samsara, right? So that good life I have in the future is very temporary. I will have to that will be over, and then I'll have to face again all these problems in this in that lifetime. And so no matter where I'm born in cycle existence, I will never be happy. And so it is no point, to practice, just to have a good rebirth. I should practice to free myself completely, from all these sufferings, all the rebirths, and all the cycle existence. And then with that thought, then you engage in the practice. That will be a medium scope.
What? Then 다 된지 가다데 다 나랑 거와 타와 지원 되면 다 나래 좀 semchen 차당 대wan도 지 누가 무슨 반에 징소리. 다 콘소 사지 아니 가로 대화당 대시 누가다 자야가 쳤다. 다 사지에서도 공부 톱고건도 우선에 대체도 지게 와등들라. 요 첨보스 또 제기다.
And so you're basically thinking about yourself, mainly about yourself alone, right? To be free from all the sufferings and to achieve everlasting happiness for yourself alone, And then you think, it is not good enough just to think about myself alone, because there are so many other sentient beings, who are going through the same kind of suffering like I am, and they have been so kind to me. Now it is, my turn to repay their kindness, and the best way to repay their kindness is by leading them to the state of everlasting happiness. And to lead there, and I have to achieve enlightenment myself first. So for that reason, I'm going to achieve enlightenment. So when you strive to do that practice, in order to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, then that becomes the practice of the great scope.
다 semje tamjo sanje sange야 다 대파 체지다 소소 담보 sanje 위진에 가르에서 가서 되어야 was.
So the reason why we have to achieve enlightenment in order to lead all sentient beings to the state of enlightenment is
다 뭐뭐라야 먼저 전에 지들은 바뀌는 데 와라 저땅 신이지 봐 안에 티아마도 저땅 무신이 티도 말아.
So if you are taking many people in the boat, then you have to be someone who knows how to sail the boat, right? If you don't know how to sail the boat, then you will not be able to lead all these people, in the boat and to the other side.
어빼 되는지 봐, 빼 되도 지발에서 semje 자상야 대체와라 소소 담보 대 사제들 랩 되는 양태고 그래서.
So just like that example, in order to lead all sentient beings to that state, first you have to reach there yourself, and then you pull them there.
그러와 먼저 리가는 가야 리가는 거고는 타봐야 되는 도스. 되니 타배 내게 리가는 담보 맞잖아. 아니 이거 완전 단자도면도 어때도 지발이.
So like if you are climbing in a high mountain, then you have to climb it with the help of the rope. But you have to have the rope tied to the top of the mountain first, right? Without somebody tying that there's no way you can pull yourself with the rope there.
Do you guys climb the mountain? Really? What mountain? The what call Morum mountain cars. On the Belgium. What's that tallest mountain?
Mount Everest?
Mount Everest. Did you go there? No. Anyway, it's joke. Okay, that's it. Then is a tap patient digi, lave the tattoo. Semja tamcho get the do some good and do some good and they check what I say. Yam song is.
And so anyway, in this text, it explains about all these practices and that we should do. And so normally when we talk about practice, it is just thinking, right? Your mind thinking in this way, mind thinking that way. So that's called the practice. So that's how that's what it explains here. This is what you should think. This is how you should think, and so forth.
그래서 당 강도라 무지 깨졌잖아. 저 대화 첨보한테 주주하는 것도 대화 첨보 연락 많이 있으라고 그러와.
So if someone were to ask you what kind of practitioner are you, whether you're a small scope practitioner, a medium scope practitioner, or a great scope practitioner, then we will normally say I'm a great scope practitioner, right? We'll claim that, right?
We think you read. Yeah, but really we think, then we check which one's our motivation. 어떻게 다 되는 다 몸을 나가면 근데 다 땅가서 되는 데만 그렇게 다 먹는 거 is.
So okay, we'll not talk too much now and go on into the text, starting from the verse number 1.
다 담보는 데란도 담보디 솔로가 담보디 빼지 아니 니바디가 다 되는 그래서 내가
So in the first verse, it is like the example, using the example of the peacock, and then the second example, the second verse, explains about the meaning, the meaning of that meaning by explaining how the bodhisattvas, deal with life like that.
다 젠두네스 마자 주바나 면지더라 레브런 제제자 마지 손노가와 먼저지 아니 젠두 찌지 마자 좋았다르스 다들 빼들이 해서
And so in the verse number 1, where it says, when the peacock roam the jungle of virulent poison, the flocks take no delight in gardens of medicinal plants, no matter how beautiful they may be, for peacock thrive on the essence of virulent poisons.
뭐지 다 빠온 코베네서 주바나 대체 빠지 담란 대제장 빠오 다는 처벌 문제지 동아 내서 선바 소와 이에서 다들 되나들 해서 장주 선바 냠내들 납고 그래서
So in the second verse, which is meaning, so similarly, when the heroes roam the jungle of cyclic existence, so the heroes here are the bodhisattvas, they do not become attached to the garden of happiness and prosperity, no matter how beautiful it may be, for heroes thrive in jungle of suffering.
어디 다들 되나로 다 빼나스 맞아 다주는 맞아 치러 맞아 되네 저당 다 두기다 된대 요사가 메토드라 되는 아마 조에 나스 도모 뭐서 히로 아니 다 면지 된지가 메토드라 면지 메토드라 때다 제오다 제오 야보다 아니 간데 야보지 요와에 나야 아니 맞아 또 텔 가오체 말해스 다 맞아 텔 가르선다 아니 두기 요사가 아니 메토 아니 전도 찌지 아니 두기 요사도 가오체 그래 가르잖아 된지가 두기 사발라 때는 맞아 코랑이 아니 존다야 제도와다 아니 다 독도 야보요 와든 도도 강갈 팽겨 와자 아니 메도 야보들 먹어 왔지 아니 디는 거다 두도 들어가 오지 그래서
And so, and just like you said in the verse 1, the peacocks, will not be very, pleased to see, the beautiful gardens, of all these medicinal plants and so forth, because that, that is not, what the peacock likes, attached to. The peacock, mostly will be interested in the plants that are poisonous plants, because those poisonous plants are the one that makes the peacock have its beautiful color on its feather and so forth. All this is made by those poisonous plants to help it. Poisonous plants helps it to have those strong body and a beautiful color, feathers and so forth, and therefore they will be more interested in that poisonous plant.
어 그래서 I don't know. This all the poisons they mix the more nice or some couple. They 하고 메서와 또 관계가 된 마지가 돈다 야보치게나 아니다 같이 돼 하고 메다 다시 다 간지 맞아서 대둑 소리가 니바 요성도 나고 그래서
And so the poisonous plant actually helps the peacocks to have a good body and beautiful the colors and so forth in their body.
간지 코랑기 다 좋아나라 간지 두기도 쉬어야겠다 니바 다 요에서 와서
So it has the system that can digest all these poisons.
다 빠온 코빈에서 주반 다 빠워서야 돼 네가 그 안에 라진이지 정 라니 야와트 젠 코나 심비 빠워세 라니 야와트다 라니 다보 맞아 라니 야와트 젠조 생이가는 상처 선바도 다 빠워세요 말해서 봐.
And then in the next verse where it says the heroes, the heroes and heroines, right? That's the bodhisattvas, called the heroes because they are the one who has overcome, the enemy, the self-cherishing attitude, right? So that's why, because they have overcome that enemy, they're called the heroes, and heroines. So they are the one who always think about others, neglect about oneself and think about others, have overcome the enemy of self-cherishing attitude.
덴리다 당 코베 나서나 아니 당 코와 제발량 디그나 거는 내 저, 셔당 두무그라서 용모베 나서 두보 아니 파드 따가나 못오비 덴비건 코베 나서 아니 다돼서 제발랑만나 진던다 아니 주바 나스다 진던다 제발랑만 나스 주반다 제발이라와.
And so when they're in cyclic existence, which is like the jungle, filled with the three poisonous, the trees, of the poisonous delusions, like attachment, ignorance, and anger, hatred, and so forth.
어떤 다 나서서 다 나서 두보 남신 나서 딱 두보이나 문나서 판존다 다 말아봐서 왔다 뇽모베가 나서 두보는 개와에 나야서와.
So just like the peacock in the jungle, of this poisonous plants, the bodhisattvas, and in the jungle, of the three poisonous delusions, in the samsara, filled with all these delusions all the time.
다 될라야 안에 되는 거에다 안 사천지 대와 아니라와 되지 빠지다는 되지 될라야 되는 거에다 될라야나 사천지 대와 아니 냠바다 그뒤 냠다 다 가서야 롱쇼차 다 가서로 오지 다 거에 대와 뭐보지레스.
And so just like in that jungle or grove, there is this all these beautiful flowers and medicinal plants and so forth. So just like that, in the jungle of the cyclic existence, there are some the samsaric pleasures, like the samsaric happinesses. All these things, the bodhisattvas will not be attached to.
다 depend on chacharis. If today 다 틀람도 좋은데 가지 다 데링아도 때마다 저로 때마다 잠오쇼 여러 왔어 다내 데링아도 고백에 대와 엄마다 건소 다 그래 다 대체 상년 당한도 로기로 때마다 건소 가디나.
So for example, like watching the Red Sox game, right? So that would be considered as samsaric happiness, right?
다 가서 데리 다 뛰어다니고 그러지. 근데 go to.
So that's supposed to be fun.
Fun, 얘나 telaya patana pechagan roso chik royores.
There's a samsaric happiness, not really happiness, but samsaric happiness, right? So people think that is a fun, that's enjoyment, that's why they go. They go, forbearing all these sufferings now of cold and all these things, but they go to enjoy that. No. But in reality, it's not really happiness, right?
So pecho roso roy kangi. 파란도는 travel any kangi. Pay some ne so top go the matter kangi some do some kineta controlling and that was.
So there's a lot of suffering there, right? So the suffering of wasting your, the spending your money, and it's the suffering of having to spend your money, suffering of experiencing all this cold and the crowdness and so forth, right? And then there's a suffering, of being stressed with the thought, thinking that your party might win and a party might lose, right? The player that you support might lose,
다 대가도 다 우유네 되지다 다 되네죠. 동아로 와서 이나 다 대가도 그때 동아 찍어 말이서 봐.
So in reality, that's a suffering, right? In reality, it's a suffering, but we don't consider that as suffering. The samsaric beings don't consider that as suffering.
나도 동아 세대 수수 감 먼저 왜 되는 저도 동아 찍어 와.
So what we don't want, we consider as suffering, right? Anything that we don't want, we consider that as suffering, right?
근데 옛날야 다 나도 소송이 짜짜쇼 책도 왔어. 옛날 대가도 다 작배운 거 따셔요 그래. 나도 정보쇼 되고다 옛날 대 작배운 거야 잘못 뒤불어야 콜 첨부들이 거는 로 그래서. 아니 니네 소소 거야도 토고에 말다 대가서 오늘 진짜대 동안에 왔어.
So what we don't want, is the suffering. If that is so, then we don't want to spend money, right? We treasure our money so much, we are so attached to our money, we don't want to spend that, right? But we have to spend it, right? So you have to do that what you don't want to do. So that's the suffering, right? And then then also like experiencing cold, feeling very cold is a suffering, right? But to watch the game, you wear all these thick clothes and then go to watch, no matter how cold it is.
That would be better to stay at home, just on the TV like that. Hey, more. Anyway, that tell us about kanji ngaro song kowe gi 다 담다 년자다 그때 당가서 지 there was some Mamushiro Yora was it, Dechi Pala, Donan Zeja Changasrava, then you Kovenala, Shida, Sachi, Deva Mamushira Yores.
And so, so just like that, there are so many other, happinesses. The samsaric happiness that we consider as happiness, right?
Right. For example, we today say we say, I don't know, I don't have the experience. I think that's we can just don't know the Tanhako or what. Anyway, the young kids, they say today I'm going to bar maybe some fun, then they drink for they fun, then they drunk, then they throw up, they got sick, right? That tambo 가서 근데 또 딱 고백이 다 대화 가서 대화는 통과해요 was. 나도 써야 돼.
So those things first we see as a happiness, right?
그래서 대 도면 소링에서 미간에 가서 쭉 다니 소소 나다 두고 뭐 영어도 was.
But then you get you get sick, by throwing up and so forth. Yeah, so all this turns into suffering, right?
얘나 다 안주고 들어간가 동아치기 말했다. 좀 고백가 다 사진지 대화 대체를 해서
So we don't, samsaric beings don't consider that as that as suffering, right? We think that as enjoyment, fun, right?
그래서 내 생이반 도와서 대체 빠지더라 대체 장스. 그래서 되는 거에다 대원되고 열에서 얘나 빠오 상주 선바도 다들 차가 말해서 그래서 빠오 다나 처번 문제지 당연히 쓰는 공연으로.
And so even though there are such kind of desirable things, beautiful forms and so forth in the samsara, but the bodhisattvas, the heroes, the bodhisattvas will not be attached to that.
그래서 근데다 안에 맞아 나만에 다 메토담다 두고들어나 요나 메토 심바도 가오메가 대다 배치바나는 거위 아니 고가 그래서 당 거위 동화 옛 주변에 당 거위 동화 간가 하콩 던서 동화에 봐 하콩에게 제트 장저 좀 받아서 아니 던서라 딱 가디나 작은 말이에요.
And so, just like the peacocks, right? Just like the peacocks, the bodhisattvas, will just like the peacock takes the poisonous plant, the bodhisattvas will take the sufferings of the sentient beings and will not be attached, to the beautiful forms, the desirable things, of the samsara.
거위 동화 저도에 봐 나당 거위가 딱 대체 동화 던서 가려요 봐 차상 아니 샹지 쇼바 용수 조변이 쪽섬 젠도시면 예라도 집에거니 아니 동화 거위 다난 거위 내라 다 주전 봐도 다 삼지대 지원색을 해서
So just like the the peacocks will not pay any attention to the medicinal plants, although they look very beautiful, but they will not pay attention to that. Just like that, the bodhisattvas will not pay attention to the beautiful forms and desirable things of the samsara, and instead they will take the sufferings, the delusions and the sufferings of oneself and sentient beings, and use that to help other sentient beings.
노스들아 되와이나 아니 자세 샹저 선바소 내차고 장원의 전에 다 그래 거위 사진이 대화 롱쇼도 말해서 롱쇼가 말해서 있어요.
So, in other words, the bodhisattvas will not be overwhelmed by the delusions like attachment, and experience the enjoyments of the samsara.
다등어서 게 빼셔다. 대링어도 지금 랍대대 서 레소스 해등이 저도 로야 말때 두셔들 딱 gel라고 말까지 등어도 빼려워서 가서 간가 지발에 들어.
I'm not saying that you should not support Red Sox. You should not watch the game. But there's the suffering there, right?
간지된 고외의 동아리에 들어가 된 고외 동아.
There's samsaric, suffering.
또 대응어도 다또 잡에 영화도 전에 된 로고 여러분.
And so those sufferings, we experience in the form of the fun, is mostly because of the attachment, right? Because we're attached to that kind of games and the bars and the enjoyment, the dancings and so forth, and so then we engage in that, and then we end up experiencing suffering.
다 네가 지금 되게 다 전화 노동으로 가려서 와야나. 너 고액이 다 사진이 대화라 다 차요 말이에요. 대 차와이나 되게 소설 동안 양내한테 트레이닝을 해서 놓고
And so anyway, so in short, we should not be attached to the samsaric pleasures, because if we are attached to that, and then in an act to strive to achieve that, then we'll end up experiencing sufferings.
근데다 장점 선바도 두돌 차바 파샤네 아니 녀모도 내차 셰단도 다 젠데시베 예라파
And so, for the bodhisattvas, not only will they not fall under the sway, of these delusions, but they can even use the delusions, to benefit other sentient beings. And so there is a saying that when Milarepa look at the worldly beings, then he thinks they are crazy. But when the worldly beings, look at Milarepa, they think he's crazy. So Milarepa has already achieved enlightenment, and we are still in cyclism, so we are the real crazy ones, right?
배치나 상제도 상주 선바수 안주 샤와 셰탕을 따대와나 가서 개모쇼도 요래서 봐. 가서 안주 샤와 너야 대완도 거다 얘나야. 너야 대완도 지 문제가 둥아다 얘나. 둥아가 이제 짱짱한 거 주게 돼요. 다 개모쇼도 원도 그래.
And so when the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas look at sentient beings, they will not be able to stop laughing because sentient beings want to have happiness, but they always run after suffering. So they always end up experiencing sufferings.
how you say? Anyways, something we can fix, someone fix. And someone person know how you fix it very well. The other person they doing to fix that doesn't know. Then try to different directions. The who knows a person they fix, then they're laughing at. This guy doesn't know. Don't do that this way now. He knows exactly the way that the other person doesn't know. They do opposite. Therefore, so
that's why the Bodhisattvas will be laughing. That's why it says sentient beings, even though they don't want to experience suffering, but they always run after the cause of the sufferings. And even though they want to have happiness, they destroy the cause of the happiness as if it is their enemies.
Dungara kadena jasho yo rese and bro. Dunga tandelembe somebody, pavitabje tata deva is. Dunga tandelembe and Shanju somebody kadina, that devana deva rese and Shuluka, somebody.
And then in verse number 3, there it says, and therefore it is due to cowardice that persons avidly pursue their own happiness and so come to suffer. And it is due to heroism that bodhisattvas, willingly taking the sufferings of others onto themselves, are always happy. So
David shelter, so Devan de tea shelter, and da Genji Dunga, and the Tandelango race and Dunga Tandelango.
So if we want to be really happy, then we should willingly take the sufferings of others upon ourselves.
Yena Yang, Tangazo, Dami Wanga, Dunga Dula Chevadan, Teledo des, Angazo Teledo des, Dami Wanga, Dharmarakshita, Lokushua. Gente choose them, similar may Tada. Ana Rani, ta Kuni Cheda Rani Chuvi Chet Tandelandevi, and the Dami, Tuju Zumi Wanga, Tankoa Tomama Tativa Dula, Java, Dula, Kiava is, Dami Wanga Dula Kiava is.
So one has to be really courageous, right? Courageous, in order to be able to take the sufferings of other beings, So, but if we are really courageous, to take the sufferings of others, and then we'll really be happy. But on the other hand, on the contrary to that, sentient beings are very like a cowardice. So that's sense coward, not brave enough to take the sufferings of others, and always think about avoiding that suffering, and actually end up experiencing all these sufferings. Thinking about only once getting rid of one suffering, let alone taking other suffering, even thinking about one's suffering, thinking about getting rid of one's suffering, and they end up experiencing all these sufferings. Not brave enough to take that. So if one is brave enough to take those sufferings of others, then one will really be happy.
Dharma said ngazula dharma la dharma. 아니 지ten 나스 니도 자원에 매봐 동아 취지 잠시 조용 무심 샘심죠 동아 취지 다야다 뇽 그래 제마다와 대화 취지 잠시 쉬나야 딱 가토치네야 데무서 왔다고 생긴지 이렇게라다 다르마스라 그래서
가토 좀 그러다
딱 가오치네 앞에 남랑 파티 대화로 뜻 중앙이나 아 대지 바 데마도 남랑 파 살아지 땅도 지체도 어떻게 생각이 이렇게 다 담아서 그래서 누가 주도 되면 다 좀 되게 대화 주도 담셔나야 다 가대로 양지 다 젠도 만들어 지금 이렇게라 아니 담아들
So those who can take the sufferings of others upon oneself is the hero, is the brave ones, right? And those who cannot take the sufferings of even oneself, So just trying to avoid even one's suffering, let alone taking upon others' suffering, is called coward, the cowardice. And so even if you experience a little bit of suffering, you feel so much suffering because you are not able to take this. Oh, it's nothing. It's okay. Experience it. This is nothing. If you think like that, that suffering doesn't become like a suffering, right? But if you are not able to bear even the small suffering, then you feel so much pain. Even if it's very small suffering, if you're not able to, endure it. So not having the power to endure that suffering, makes the suffering even worse. And then, it's also even if small happiness, when we have small happiness, we get so excited. And then when we have small suffering, we get so much pain. So that's called the cowardice. So are we coward in that sense? Who cannot bear, to take, even the smallest little suffering for others, right? So if somebody is angry at you and says bad word to you, will you be able to take that?
No, right? We immediately set back, right? And karna pajowaga ya control dungati yawanda jeni tido wadanga laku yorwa niji. Ta shida dunga da ramram bana tenda lawa inarwa. And ngando zoto mando wakaji tsinga bachiya.
So if someone were to say something bad to you, then you will immediately respond to that person, right, with the bad words, right? Normal people, ordinary people will do that, right? So other person is also not to be blamed because he's not, he's not, on his own. He's controlled by his delusions, right? Out of his delusions and out of his anger, he's forced to say those bad words to us,
어떻게 근데 이제 다치 소소 노약은 대화 들어간다. 가운데 전화야 가도 지 때마다로 용도 왔어.
And so then when something good happen to us, then we become very excited, very happy, right? Can't even control ourselves.
You got to jump. Sometimes jump. 근데 이제 다 내가 나라 가르친다. 그냥 대화 되고 되나 젠데 제고 그래서 누가 맨날 젠데 되고 그래서라고 그래서.
And so he's saying that if you want to have happiness, you should work for the benefit of others. If you want to have happiness for yourself, you have to help others, benefit others. And if you don't want to have any sufferings, then help others.
Can
you accept that? What do you think? Is that true? So, for example, if somebody is helping others all the time, then people will always think good about him, right? And will praise him, right?
그렇죠. 다 미치라 소소마지 스치 섬놈들 가디나 소소된다 뭐강가라 요랑나 되게나 미강게겠다 미대하고 말스 강게 누구도 되게 왔어.
And if there's other person who is always thinking about himself and creating all this trouble to others for his own sake, and then that person will not be liked by others, right? And everybody will say bad thing about him.
Gracias. Oh yeah. I can speak a little Spanish. ¿Es correcto? Gracias. Hola. Muy bien. tenere nanzo mukadina kongro sawo soso 주보 된다라 지금 미강가 파 콘로라 수 콘로라 되는 nanzo 미강가 가오체 말아봤어.
So is that true that for your own sake, if you just make others angry, then they will not be happy with you, right?
샘젠로나 샘젠간도 다 돈으로나 소소 주보 지 강가라 파 콘로라 수 콘로라 되는데라 소소 주보 대대하면 샘젠 심바도 반 콘토 오면 돼.
And so it's the same with the animals, right? The animals that create trouble to other animals will not, will be alone, right? Will be lonely by itself. No other animals will come around it.
아 많이 봐지 샘제 강가지 샴보로 냠도 녀되게나야 샘제도 강가 수루루제네. 그 리치 바 인도 말는데 용도 왔어.
So but on the other hand, if the animal is very friendly and very nice, with others, then other animals will come also around it, right? Whether it's same type or not.
ten제다 tenzo다 나도 남배 추나라야 옌 라다 옌이나가 옌도 싱에텔라다 기호용 대호용 거래. 라다 옌이가 라 코나선데게들 기호용 말에서도 라비오레스.
So that's what is saying in Buddhism. If someone is always thinking about oneself and causing trouble to others, then will not be happy. If it's someone who always thinks about others think about benefiting others, and then that person will be happy all the time, right?
다땡아도 라고요 왔어. 옌베 대다지 다 직대난 담블링아도 직대나라야 지금 뭐 옌지 때는 옌데가 샤와 체부치는 무강게가 밑에 야보레서 지금 단 담블링 담아만 못 돼야 돼. 이것도 와.
And so somebody who serve serve others in this world will be always liked by others, right? Will be rewarded, will be rewarded and will be praised and so forth, right?
대만부에 소소 주보면서 옌 스치기 맞아 소소 주보다나 몇 강가라 뇨다 라댕에달라 단 담블링아도 담아도 수직적이면도 와서 저도 고녀에
So someone who is always thinking about oneself and causing trouble to others, then will not be liked by others, right? Will not be awarded, right? Have you heard of a medal given to somebody who's causing trouble to others all the time?
대단 직땡간 롤단 통이도 가서 가데 그 추게서 개말한도 아무래도 강해.
So it's nothing to do really with the Dharma only, right? It's the general generally how people will accept in the world, right?
근데 그 야포지네 관계 액셉트는 그 야보면은 딱 가시가 액셉트나 관계 액셉트도 말아.
And so if the person is good, then everybody will accept, right? Otherwise, even if it is accepted by some people, but will not be accepted by all, right?
어떻게 된데다 딱 안주 아니 대원 되겠다야나 달매온 거딱 나도 그때나 누가 자자고 이래 들어와.
So even though we want to have happiness, but because of cowardice, we always end up experiencing suffering.
된데다 다 쇼로가티 트디지만이 다 누가 다들렘비 찬조 선바티 다 젠지 누가 다들렘비 찬조 선바티 다 뽀보인다 티 톱지 가디나 대화레스로와 또다 젠데 누가 다들렘비 선바테나나 뽀보 일렌주 바터 다 가디나 대화레 다 수치그 다 누가 때도 말이 되는 거라.
So the bodhisattvas who is always thinking about others, neglecting oneself and thinking about all the time others, is the hero. So will not be happy, will not be unhappy at all. And so nobody will be able to cause unhappiness, in him or her.
간제 코로 무스지가 코로라 마타게 뭐지야 봐. 대 간제 코로를 떼와라 가서.
So if there is someone who is who cannot be made to become angry, if there is somebody who nobody can make him become angry, then he has overcome the anger, right? he has gained, won over the anger, right? He has won. He has gained the victory over the anger. So that's because the anger is not able to harm him, right? So therefore bodhisattvas have always have all the time conquered the samsaric pleasures, all the samsaric pleasures. So therefore they will not be harmed by samsaric pleasures. So somebody becoming angry at us can make us become unhappy, right? So that suffering is given to us by somebody becoming unhappy to us, unhappy or angry with us, right? So not only becoming angry, but even the way they look, can make you become unhappy, right?
It's happened. Of course, they talk, action. And
so because they have not, conquered, to that delusions, therefore, that can cause them to be unhappy. And so for the bodhisattvas, they always take the sufferings upon themselves, and and they cannot be made to become angry, so therefore they are always happy. So that's why the bodhisattvas are called heroes or heroines, because they have overcome all these delusions, and none of these things in samsara can cause them to be unhappy. So they have conquered over all these delusions and sufferings and or the samsaric pleasures, and therefore they are called the heroes. And so themselves are always happy. That's why it's always happy. So all these other delusions in our mind can cause us to be unhappy, right? It can give us suffering. Our anger, our attachment, our jealousy, all this can cause us to be unhappy. And so those who are thinking about others all the time will not be harmed by those thoughts. So this is a bodhisattva practice. It's really difficult to understand unless we apply those worldly examples with them. And so the Buddhist teaching, accords, with the worldly science. So it's not said by the Buddhists, but said by the scientists. And so how much more you investigate or analyze about it, and that much more you see that it goes along with the worldly science. So for example, when you go through small suffering, because of where you think, can make it become like a very big suffering, right? So because of your, thoughts, superstitions, it becomes even bigger than it really is, right? But if you don't think about that, if you don't have any kind of superstitions or any thought about it, then you don't even remember the suffering. You don't even know that was a suffering, right?
그냥 삼삼 저도 소나뉴에 좀 용기로 왔어.
Have you had a toothache? Right?
근데 소나디베 갑라야. 나도 지 야무나 소소 때문에도 지 계산으로 시지는 거는 거는 나도 소나 제로도 와.
So when you have that toothache, sometimes if you are distracted by other things, right, watching movie or talking with some friends or things like that, even though you have toothache, but you forget about it, right?
근데나 그 가리지나 소나나 예와다 이나 그 코로나때 솔들 무슨 그 나보 맞아잖아. 그거 가서 저 내치도 와.
So even though the pain is there, but because we're not really paying attention to it or thinking about it, and so you kind of forget about it, and you don't really feel the pain then.
dunga 강에 간이 나던데 나도 강에로 오시나 수수 강에 대식 다 대라야 타야가 탑히로 근데 강에다 나라 마로마지 총수 삼만로 단즉 뭐지 계셔를 나오다가 두잘 듣는 걸 삼단나 수수 때 남도 그때 제일 말다 네 수수 건다니 막고 가서 영어도 와.
So in the same way, the sufferings, any kind of suffering. So if we think about it more, and then it becomes more and more suffering. And so if you think that even though you're experiencing very small suffering, but if you think so, oh, this is too much, this is something that only happened to me. It doesn't happen to others, and it only happened to me. That's how we feel like, as if it only happens to us. And if we can think that, oh, this is nothing, it happens to all of everybody. This is not only me. If you can just think like that, just that thought will make it become so much less, sufferings, less and less problem, But we don't think like we always think that, oh, this is only happening to me, as if we think as if it is only happening to us, right? And it's not happening to others, And because of that thought, and then we make it even bigger and bigger, that we couldn't even fall asleep in the night,
뭐 그래서 남도 써야 돼. 다 싫어하게 있는 거 좀 보래. 아주 가두고 저 마무리 남도 저기 그랬어.
So this thought, it plays a very a major role, in our sufferings. So all these big sufferings and small sufferings, or happinesses, all is mostly, by the thought, is created by thoughts.
근데 미치게 지기 라바이나 수수생나 특등함 내가 먼저 특대 야보 먼저 삼잖아. 수텔에 동아 영도. 특대 내가 수게 맞지와이나 아니 그 강에 개적으면 도.
If somebody says something bad to you, and then if you just ignore it, if you say, oh, that's okay, you just ignore it, then you don't feel anything, right? But if you say, oh, he said something like this, if you keep thinking about that word that he said or she said, then that becomes really troubling to your mind.
근데 연거래 다 상제 가서 마다 랍자스 거는 좀 너무 송셔. 다 때가서 레드 두면 가서 다 냠냠도 내 삼다래.
So Buddha has taught this many times, this is what's going to happen, but whether it's really happening like that or not, we can, investigate or think by ourselves and see if it's really true or not.
어디지? 다 되네 바지 다 드링된 가서 되네 샤드네. 저도 저바이나 저바까지 당세.
And so I think we'll stop here today, and then if you have any questions, maybe we can have some question answers.
근데 바지 내려야 레바만 보지래. 근데 저도 자와 주보는 고마는 레바도 로그랬어.
And there are many commentaries, to this text. So if you don't understand just by the root text, then you should also read, the commentaries.
나 시단다다 중소가가 르반 nombo. 동보는 로조야 보여 가서 중도 레라고 자와는 것도 나고도.
And so because you are very smart and intelligent, so you most of you understand just by reading the root text, right? The verses.
For me, I have to use the commentary, the one by one. But anyway, the main thing is the read more again than to think about this, true or not. Then you have doubt, bring the question, we can discussion, When we do more discussion, then we can all learn more. If we want more discussion, then you also they can, you can keep your mind more, or you stay the mind more. This is, I have a lot of experience. When I was, monastery, we debate, we yell each other. It's not yelled at. Look, people, just new people coming there, they're yelling, what, they're fighting, Looks at their face very serious, They push each other very far away, They don't care what happened. They debate very serious. If you, how much is, correct?
So how much more you investigate about it, that much more it will be a study in your mind.
Then you just go to the teaching, you just listen there, stay there, then just keep the book, then 2-3 days you forgot. Then still I have some memorized. When 15 years before we study, still a couple things very easy I can remember because at that time we lot of debate. Then some things we still say again still I don't understand what they talk about. Lula, very important to familiarize more what we study. First you study, then you practice. Not means you study 5 years, then you practice. Not that you can study morning, you can study evening, you can try to practice that. You can think about it true or not. Okay? Yep. Then questions. Yep. I think you can say
So before you got into the text, you were talking about what the difference between belief and science, and how our experience leads us to find truth. And then you talked about how we should motivate ourselves based on future lives and things like that. But what about for someone whose experience has not shown them the truth of future lives or past lives or this sort of thing? How is something like that to motivate themselves for the future life when they don't know if there is a future life?
So what it means is that, for example, we talk about past and future lives, right? We say, okay, so we have to practice Dharma. The reason is because we want to have a good rebirth. And because there is a rebirth, there's a next life, there's a future life. That's what we were told. But then there's a reason to think whether there's a future life or not, and whether there's a past life or not. How do we come into existence in this life, right? How do we come? And so, and now what brought us here? We have a body, we have a mind. What brought us, brought our body here? What brought our mind here? So there's a way you can think. You have to analyze, you have to study, you have to discuss, you debate, and through that you will come to understand that yes, there is a future life. And so that's how you understand. Of course, if you don't study, then there's nothing to discuss, right? So to discuss, you have to study also. And so first you just listen, and then after that you discuss. If you haven't heard it at all, you will not have discussions at all. So the more you discuss, then more familiar you will become. And then it will make sense to you. Then you will see also through the study, through the discussions, oh yeah, that's right. It makes sense now. It makes sense that there was a past life, and it makes sense that there is a future life. There will be a future life, like that. So that's so that's how you discuss, and you get into a conversation with people by reading and so forth. So in the discussion it says that our mind and our body are a separate thing, right? So your mind and your body are separate things. So, but your mind and your body, it has a cause. Right? It has a cause. There is something that produced that, right? There's something that produced it. It didn't like pop up, right? By itself, it came into existence through something, right? So there was a cause. So this is what we're doing now. We're discussing.
shada, chada, the repasum, the dijadorba.
So with your body, with regards to your body, where did your body come from? What is body made of, right? The body is made of flesh, bones, and then we say blood, right? So those are the things, that our body consists. So our body is made of those things.
Tenditi ta yonga jeteya, korada ring tamaiko mato, ring bandamba, Pena hindo, sado, do, tendega, tatiko, jecheto maresro.
So that body, which is made of blood, flesh, bones, and blood, has to come from something similar to that. It can't be made by something totally different from that, right? It has to be made by something similar to that. And so, like the flesh, the bone and the blood cannot be made by a stone or the stone or the wood cannot be transformed into that, right?
Tendita pena, tat 파르마죠 pena, teni charanga subote, ane kesanga subote ke tan rewa chaga yorwa, rewa chaga nores, rewa la goresro.
So when you trace it back like that, then it will go to the cause that came from that where it came from. So today's body that you have it came from yesterday's body.
Pena kesanga subote teni subo marwa subo kaga chaga yorwa.
So what do you think? You think it's different? Yesterday's body and today's body is different or same?
It's different, it's not completely different.
Yeah, not completely.
It's the same continuum, right? It's the same continuum, but it's not exactly the same, right?
바제 나도 나 저랑 로 정화가 수보다 데리고 수보체나 로 정화가 수보다 이양와다 데리고 수보다 다도 계산해. 나 그 대지 지방도 열어요.
So this is what we're talking. We're talking very small gap, between yesterday and today, right? So if you talk about when you were 10 years old, and today what you're 25, maybe? 29. Okay, so like 10 years or 15 years, like so, 14 years different. When you see the 14 years different, the gap of 14 years, then that's a big difference, right? So when you're 15 years old and when you're 29 years old, your body, there's a big difference in your body, right? Maybe you are much healthier, younger, or whatever, So and then now it's older and sicker. And I'm just kidding. Yeah. So anyway, so that's we're talking about the body part, right? So that's how the body comes from like that. So today's body came from yesterday. So the 10 years old body came from 9 years, and then then from 1 year, and then from the time when it was conceived in the womb, and so forth. So it goes back like that, right? So same with the mind.
데리진의 저랑게 따단다 수보 침보데 엄마 파마니가 커트라운 되어버려 되는 쇼머스. 덴지 파메 크라데 다 저랑게 파마니다 용어로 왔어.
And so so then your body, so that's how your body goes back all the way to the the seminal fluid and sperm and egg of your parents, like that, right? And then that came also from their body, right? And so their body came from when they go back to their body, and then their body came from their parents, the sperm and egg and like that.
So the body as a substance is made up of smaller parts. Is the mind also the same way, or is it just like a unified substance? The mind is not made up of something small.
샘데 사시 르바세지 간제 샘 코랑게 제제 나마지 지긴데 샘딩 월마 연구를 샘데 다나가서 다 주본로 이제 바반도 그랬고 샘다 차오 반유뉴 다 차오 이래서.
So the mind is a formless. It doesn't have a form. It is mental, right? It's a formless. It doesn't have a gross substance like the body has. So, but there is a moment of the mind, right? So today's mind, yesterday's mind, and then subtle mind, gross mind. Okay, you can differentiate the minds in that way also. That is a gross and subtle mind.
다 두치네. Lula that you have to this think a lot. Also, you have to study more.
Yeah.
Otherwise, of course, you guys completely new this Buddhism. We say talk about complete different ways. Maybe you all grew up maybe in some different religions. Therefore, we talk a different way. Of course, difficult to understand, difficult to accept that. But you can think about more study more, then investigation more, then it will be possible to more understand, more make sense. Okay? That's little more. Lula, that then you can take future path like future. Even you don't take future, you can just right now you are 20, you can think about maybe after 50s. After 50s, many people working very hard right now. They're adults. They say, this is for work for me. Also, they save some money to the retirement. They think about they how you say,
Old.
Old. Usually people rather like to hear the old, right? No, 50 is not old. Anyway, 60s, 70s, 80s. We say that time I don't want any problems, for financial anything. Therefore, I want to save something right now. You see, maybe you stay there, maybe not. We don't know that. We just think about very long term. Then we come in the say,
So you work hard now, to not have a difficult time, at an old age.
Also, the parents, they say, okay, for my kids, they don't think that also my kids. Here the Tibetans, they buy a house. They mortgage their, I think, 30 years. When the 30 years, there's some already maybe gone. That they say, well, it's more for my kids,
So just like the mind, there is no beginning. So mind goes back like that, so to this life and then to the next, to the previous life like that. And then also it keeps on continue, so even if you die in this life, when you die in this life, your mind will not cease there, it will continue, to the next life. So that's how it proves that there is a next life. So by discussing like that and then debating and investigating like that, then you will come to understand or realize that there is a past and future lives like that.
Okay? Then any other? Okay.
I'll be quick, Eshe.
Okay.
Thank you. So regarding the text in verse number 3 where it says, and it's due to heroism that bodhisattvas willingly take the suffering of others unto themselves. Is it possible to ask, like, what does that mean, like they take it onto themselves? Because they are bodhisattvas, I'll speak for myself, like attempting to train to eventually be a bodhisattva. I understand bodhisattvas do not partake in they roam here it says that they roam the jungle of cyclic existence. They do not become attached to the garden of happiness nor prosperity. So I'm kind of curious as to how they take the suffering of others onto themselves. Is that fair to ask?
There's a little bit of willingly taking the sufferings of others onto themselves. So that makes you think like they're taking your suffering away from you, right? So they're taking the suffering that you don't have to experience.
Right.
That's how you understand?
Well, no, I have a question. It sounds like that's
that's what I mean.
Is it because they don't see suffering, they don't experience suffering, so therefore they can engage with, say, mere mortals, or however you want to put it, ordinary people, because we're so stuck in cyclic existence that we're like full of emotion and anger and resentment that bodhisattvas would not necessarily engage in that fight. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that is how it understands in English, right? So it is willingly taking the sufferings of others upon themselves. It's like they're taking the sufferings of other beings. So in reality, it's not possible, really, right? How can somebody else take your suffering away? Yeah. But what it means here, that's what I'm saying. What it means here is that bodhisattvas will accept the sufferings. So when they work for the benefit of others, they will have to go through many difficulties, many sufferings, right? It will be tough to work for the others, right? So it's, as we experience also, it is tough to work for others. But then we don't say, oh, it's difficult, but it doesn't matter. I can do it, I can do it. And even if I experience some pain, it's okay. I can take it.
And because it helps others, therefore I'm going to take the pain and then I'm going to work for that. So that's what bodhisattvas feel like. And so when they think like that, then even if they experience suffering, the suffering will not affect them. You know what I mean? So if it will not affect them, they will be okay with that because they are willingly taking the sufferings upon themselves. And so even if they have to go through pain and all the sufferings, to help others, they will do that. But we're cowardice. We're not able to take the suffering. We're not, brave enough to take the suffering. And so therefore we say, oh, no, I don't want to do that because it's so much pain, so much suffering. I can't help others because to do that, I have to go through all these pains. I don't want to go through that pain. I'm not brave enough, and therefore I don't do that, Whereas bodhisattvas, they don't feel like that. That's what it means. It doesn't mean actually they will take suffering away from you. It doesn't mean that. Okay?
지금 control하와이나 변화로 전에자와이나 다텔라 판 란로 렌로가 말했더니 그 좋다 그랬어. 란렌도 그랬어.
So if someone were to say something bad to you, if you're a bodhisattva, people say, okay, doesn't matter, no more problem, right? So, but if somebody were to say that to us, ordinary people, then we'll say something back then, and then there's a lot of problem. All this problem comes from because of that, because they're not able to take that suffering. As you say, okay, doesn't matter, like that, then there's no more pain, no more sufferings. So that's what it means that they're willingly taking all the sufferings like that.
Okay. Okay. Now I think she's first.
So, a few times today you've used the word superstitions, and I'm not really sure what you mean by that. Could you explain maybe with Damsha's help a little bit more about what the Tibetan word means?
Yes, the superstition, is a concept, it's a thought, right? So, maybe it's like that, maybe it's like that. That's a superstition, right? So, how do you understand in English, right? When you say superstition,
In superstition, a superstition in American English is, for example, if a black cat walks across your path, you will have bad luck. That's a superstition.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
It's similar to that.
Okay.
Everything is same as that. If black cat walks across your road, you think it's bad going to happen, right? Okay. But it's not really bad going to happen, right? So if that's a very gross understanding about the superstitions, right? But when you think about, okay, he must be saying, when he's looking at me, he must be thinking something bad. Is he really thinking bad? We don't know. That's superstition. That's a superstition also, And so because of that, then you develop all these thoughts and say, why is she looking at me like that? Why is she, what is she murmuring about? Maybe the two people they're talking, showing back to you and then talking something, and then your thought goes also, or maybe they're talking bad thing about me. That thought. So same as the cat crossing your leg, crossing your road is going to bring something bad to you. It's a very similar thought, but that is called superstition, and this is also superstition. Yeah.
When Tibetan the nomads have one, superstition, we have to go to check the water, drinking water. We have to throw the, how you call it, rivers. The ladies are checking big, some bucket, no bucket.
Mm-hmm.
What's that? Drum?
Tank, water tank.
Big tank. When they're going to there, we see very bad luck because empty. We saw the empty. We say, it's truly very bad luck.
So in America also you think that crossing a black cat crossing road is bad? Really?
Really?
Especially Halloween time.
No, I thought that was only in Nepal, we think like that. I was riding a cab one time in Nepal, and then I was going towards the Kopan monastery, and then suddenly the driver just stopped the car in the middle of the road. And I said, why are you stopping? And we're almost there, just keep on going. And he said, no, the black cat just crossed the road. I can't go. And something bad going to happen to me. So then I said, what do we do?
Yeah.
And he said, somebody has to cross first. And then I said, okay. I got off the car, crossed the road, and then I go back. And then
Yeah.
So I can't wait there because there was nobody going to come by there.
Yeah, same as there, we also then they bring the water, full water bring, then we say, it's very auspicious. Then they say, it's very thank you, very auspicious. But real, there's nothing mixed, different, but it's superstition, like that. Okay, now, how?
I guess my question was, so earlier when describing how bodhisattvas are helpful to other beings, is that similar, within the context of this text? It kind of brings to mind, like the Tonglen practice, breathing in the suffering from the left nostril, and then it, destroys your the ego, and then the bright light, and then comes out the right. Is that kind of the same kind of thing, or is that just at our level, that's a practice for us to try to be helpful?
동네 냠래 제도 숨거를 왜 쓰거든. 자기다 당 전선에 동al 당도란 게 써야 돼.
다 동네도 같이 장주점에 냠래제 가도 제도
말다 단다 장주섬에 되나다 지금 숨바나라. 지금 숨바나라 데 당도란 걸 써야죠. 어디서 거다 그런스나. 데데되는 것도 장주섬에 먼저 동네 냠래 제도 집어를 왜 쓰거든. 동al 당도 렘베 셈바티 써야죠. 동al 당도 렘베 셈바티 써야.
장주 셈바티.
파워도 그 따도 되어 있는 써야 돼. this is the 동al 당도 렘베 써야 돼. 다든 동네 냠래 제도 집어를 왜 쓰거든.
또 집어집어 랍죠. 집어집어라고 해서. 강가 장주도 냠래 바자 초다는 자서.
So yeah, of course you can say it's similar to that, but again there it is a little bit different, right? So here you are ready to take the hardship to work for the benefit of others, but there you are imagining taking the suffering of others upon yourself and imagining that they are free from suffering and you are experiencing that suffering. So now they are completely free from suffering. But here it's not saying that. It's not saying that that they're taking away the sufferings of other beings. Here it's saying that you're undergoing all these sufferings in order to benefit others. So in terms of the practice, bodhisattva practice, yes, you can say they all are bodhisattva practice. But in terms of taking, like bearing the suffering, and then practicing, to take the suffering, it's two little bit different things. No, not that. Not really that. Well, it's a different context. Here, it means like you're willing to go go under hardship in order to help others. So when you're doing the Tonglen practice, so you imagine taking the sufferings of others upon yourself like that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
So in the beginning, actually, you talked about motivation, and you said that we start off thinking about future lives, and that if you don't even think about future lives, you think about just this life, you're not even a Dharma practitioner. But what about people who don't think about future lives? They just think about benefiting others. They have a good heart and they only think about benefiting others, and then they benefit them. They don't even think about they want to get some gain in this life. They just think about others. Will they achieve a better rebirth in the future, even if they don't even believe in future lives? And also, are they practitioners if they are genuinely thinking of others, but they're not thinking about future lives?
그래 교화시만 고마스는 간저다 교화시마도 사물 마다는 제바이나 때는 저래요 말서라 저래요 말을 라브라다기 대디서도 있는다 미션도다 저 교화시마 개말랭게 지거든요 미션도 신대 자충부 제바이나 안데는 신대 자충부 쟁에 신대 자충부 제발라 때는 그런 교화시마라 때는 교화 상부질랭 그래 봤어
대len랭게 고 남의 추년에도 개말다 간제 그 교화가지도 개랭게 말에 된것도 남의 추나 그 냠는 방도 지금 말해서 나 그 샤와야 보지 레벨 때는 팀 레벨야 보지 그 용어를
So definitely it will bring a good result, So you're not say Dharma practitioner, but it will definitely bring a good result. If you work for the benefit of others, and definitely you're going to die. Right? So when you die, there will be next life. So when you're in the next life, then you will have a good result from that action.
Okay, he's died, then in the we believe he's died in this nature. He born, then this also cause condition. He really created a very good karma. Good that J of sorrow.
So
The Koran Kelemani is a came, no country, who younger was. Shawaya was here and the way of younger is.
So if you do good, you'll get good, right? So that's the general rule of the cause and effect, right? So yeah, that's definitely going to happen. So because he has done good, so even though he believes in the future life or not, but there is definitely a future life. It doesn't matter whether he believes in it or not, right? And so when he has a future life, then that time he will have a good result. he will have happiness there.
So even if people don't believe in it, it's okay. I mean, they'll still have a good rebirth even if they just...
Just other than that.
Yes, yes. So they will definitely, have, good life.
Okay, thank you. I think we stop now. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to support the Red Sox. And that's it. That's good. It's a good fit. I'm going to send for the Red Sox section then. They say, they say it was very good.
And down, Geshe.
And put your hand down.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, page 39, and we're gonna ask how.
That's it.
That's
Rocket
right,
ship?
yeah.
Rocket, like a rocket.
Sashi Gopi Kushite Waka Rirakin Shiki Veke Gopi Sami Shinku Veke Wagi Jokana Vashi Vasho Vasho Jesu Rame Kushi Rakin Shani Nampashi Veke Chuki Waka So Santam Veke Sami Jore From my flesh is fast space that I pass over whatever is practice for every time. May I come to you for all of us, my ignorance. Even if I do not reach the state, may I have compassion for all my life. May I find the best complete great paths and teachings, and may I be all moved by practicing. Using skillful means strong by strong force and passion. May I give the hearts to the minds of all beings. With the points of the paths I discern, may I hold with his teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion, may whatever direction most such teachings cannot be spread anyone's private mind. May I reveal such great happiness in me. May the minds of those who wish for liberation and their peace, by the great force to unite and complete one is Christ's conduct to Buddhism and children. May all human and non-human beings who live in diversity and anything conducive for practicing every part of their lives never be parted in any of their lives from the clearest path praised by the Buddhists. Whenever someone makes an effort to act as a Buddha, to take full money and virtuous practices, they always by the might of the minds as oceans prosperity for that everywhere. Long life prayer for holiness, followed by the long life prayer on page 49. So and so forth.